Why are so many top 25 teams losing? Well, let's talk about it. What is up, awesome people of the internet? Y'all, I really feel like a broken record here. Every week I say the same thing. Any team can get got. And every week, more teams are getting got. And there's been lots of upsets this past week. But specifically, I do want to do a roundup of the top 25 teams that lost this past week. Specifically, there are 12 of the top 25 teams that lost this week, and we're going to go over that list right now. And we start with UCLA, who had a very unexpected loss against unranked Washington State. It was number 2 UCLA versus Washington State. The game was 85-82, so pretty close. But a thing to note about this game, before we get into it, is that Lauren Betts was not in attendance due to a medical issue. This is the second game that she has missed for UCLA, and for sure, we don't know what's going on, but it seems very, very serious. From the way that the post-game press conference went for UCLA, it really does seem like something is going on internally with UCLA, and it may or may not involve Lauren Betts.
This one will be measured by everybody else on the outside by the end score, but it won't be measured that way for me. What Kiki and the rest of her teammates, what they showed from the inside out, you have no idea. And we have a phrase in our program that everybody at UCLA says champions are made here, but we say champions are made here from the inside out. And we showed a lot from the inside out. And credit to Washington State. They do such a good job, and they execute so well. Just a credit to who they are. They're a really good team, and I want to acknowledge that. And but I couldn't be prouder of the fight, heart, enthusiasm, togetherness, belief that my team showed.
Like in terms of regular season losses, it seems like you're extremely emotional about this one. What about this particular game and the stakes and is kind of like bringing out that kind of like emotion in you right now?
I think
I got it.
Okay, go ahead.
as usual, covering for me.
It hasn't been an easy week for a lot of different reasons for everyone in this program, and I think just knowing how hard we fought to go out there today and give it our all, and how we just had each other's back, it meant a lot to everyone, and obviously it didn't come out the way we wanted it to, but I'm just so proud of all my teammates, my coaches, everyone in this program for being willing to go out there and give it our all.
Yeah, I think the reality for us is my ultimate goal and my ultimate job and responsibility is maybe to other people it's just to win games, but it's to teach, mentor, and equip and coach these young women's hearts. And there's just been some things that have been, it's more important. Bottom line.
So again, we don't know what's going on. However, please, please, please keep UCLA and specifically Lauren Betts in your prayers. Don't know what's going on. However, it seems very, very serious. And when it comes to like health, a lot of stuff could be like, I'm not going to speculate, but please just keep Lauren Betts and the entire UCLA team in your prayers because there's definitely a lot of stuff going on that we do not know about. And for UCLA, not having Betts in the post was a huge factor in them losing. because they didn't really have real post presence in this game. And that truly was the difference in this game. It was the post presence, because for Washington State, it was Bella Marikatete who did her thing in this game. She did her thing for the Cougars in the paint, scoring 20 points and really helping to secure the win with some clutch free throws at the end of the game. Charlize Legger-Walker also had a really good game for the Cougars, and she had 17 points in this game, including some big three-pointers. Before she unfortunately went down in the third quarter with a non-contact knee injury. We have seen what non-contact knee injuries end up leading up to. We don't know. We don't have the word about specifically what her injury was, but it did not look good at all. So for sure, prayers for Charlize for that as well, because it didn't look good, especially for a non-contact injury. That Charlize Legger-Walker went out in the third quarter. For the Cougars, they had a sizable enough lead that even with her not being on the court, they were able to still eke out a win. For UCLA, it really was their offensive post play that was, as I mentioned earlier, that was the issue and caused them to lose the game. The guards basically carried the load for this team and did a phenomenal job trying to do it all. For UCLA, they were down big to start the end of the third quarter, and they came back. They tried to come back in the second half. They didn't complete the comeback and get the win. However, they definitely did have several 3-point attempts at the end of the game to try to win it. On the positive side, I will say that London Jones, Kiki Rice, Charisma Osborne did very, very well, especially in that second half, scoring 19, 25, and 20 points respectively. For UCLA, it really wasn't a guard issue, as I keep saying. It was a post issue that cost them the game. However, from the post-game commentary, they're definitely dealing with a lot of other stuff. So I think it's important to have that in mind when we think about this loss and what it means for UCLA. There definitely seems to be a lot of internal stuff that the players were dealing with as they were playing. So that for sure can weigh very, very heavily on you. For Washington State, they are now 15-6 on the season and are in 6th place in the Pac-12. For UCLA, they are now 16-3 on the season and in 4th place in the Pac-12. Now, staying in the Pac-12, there was another surprise defeat that we saw. From the number 3 team, Colorado, lost to number 25 team, Oregon State. So how did this happen? Well, the game was really about a battle between the guards, and Oregon State won out. Colorado originally went out to a sizable lead in the first quarter, and the Beavers responded. They responded by getting the lead by halftime and never really letting go after that. Shout out to Donovan Hunter and Talia Von Olheifen for having a really good game for Oregon State. They both finished with a team high of 16 points. For Colorado, Jalen Sherrod fouled out with seconds left to go in the game. She ended up finishing with a game high of 19 points. Frida Foreman and Erinette Von Lay scored 13 and 12 points respectively. Colorado played again this weekend, redeeming themselves with a win against Oregon on Sunday. They are now 17-3 on the season and it's in 2nd place in the Pac-12. So for the Beavers, they weren't done either for the weekend. On Sunday, Oregon State defeated then number 16 Utah handedly, 91-66. So y'all, Oregon State is hey, they mean business. Oregon State means some business. So watch out for Oregon State if you're in a Pac-12. For the Utes, for sure, Alyssa Peely did her thing in that game against Oregon State. She scored 28 points, but the reason for the loss was the Utes' lack of defense. Oregon State shot 69% from the field, which is just wild, compared to the Utah's 39%. This also was the first time this season where an opponent scored more than 90 points against Utah. So for sure, defense was an issue, and that's definitely something that they need to shore up on as we get further into the Pac-12 season. Utah are now 15-6 on the season and are in 5th place in conference play. Oregon is 17-3 on the season and in third place in the Pac-12. And staying with the Pac-12 a little bit longer, we have USC that lost to Washington in a nail-biter of a game, 62-59. Now, this game was really a battle of who wants it more. USC came out super sluggish in this game, and in the Pac-12, you can't really do that because you can and will get got. And that's exactly what happened. That is exactly what happened. And what's even more impressive is that Washington got the win without their starter, junior guard Jada Noble, who did not actually make the trip to LA. And for this game overall, it really felt like it wasn't until the end of the game that USC realized that they were about to lose the game. So they stepped up and started hitting some three-pointers. They hit 3 3-pointers with less than a minute to go in the game, but it was a little too late for the team. Shout out to Lauren Shorts from Washington, who had a game high and a season high of 21 points in this game. Now for USC, Juju had a bit of off night, especially compared to her standards. She was 8 of 27 from the field and only scored 19 points in this game. Kayla Padilla stepped up big time for USC, going 6 of 9 from the three-point line and finishing with 20 points. The Trojans are now 14-4 on the season and are in 6th place in the Pac-12. For the Huskies, they are 13-6 on the season and are in 8th place in the Pac-12. Now, y'all, Pac-12 play has just been wild this entire season, and it just continued last week as well with just more teams that have unexpectedly lost. But honestly, it's getting to a point where you can't really say unexpectedly anymore when it comes to the Pac-12 because any of these teams get win on any given day because it's just how strong the Pac-12 is. It really is. Now going from the West Coast to the East Coast, UConn lost at home to Notre Dame 82-67. Now, I did make a separate video about this game, so if you want to watch my full commentary about it, you can just watch that video. But what this game really went down to was that the Irish had 7 players that they could truly rely on for the game and get the job done, and UConn didn't. That was it. UConn is now 17-4 on the season and are in first place in the Big East. Notre Dame redeemed themselves after losing earlier in the week to Syracuse 79-65. Now, this was a huge win for Syracuse because this was the first time that Syracuse has ever beaten Notre Dame. And shout out to Deasia Fair, who has been balling all year. She played all 40 minutes for the Orange and scored 25 points, including 4 3-pointers in that game against Notre Dame. Notre Dame are now 15-4 on the season and are ranked in 6th place in the ACC. Syracuse would go on to lose yesterday against Virginia Tech, 75-62. In that game, it really wasn't a surprise. The game was one of runs, and in the end, Georgia Amore just was clutch and scored 29 points to give Virginia Tech the victory. Syracuse is now 17-3 on the season and are in 2nd place in the ACC. Virginia Tech is 16-4 on the season and are tied actually with Syracuse for 2nd place in the conference. LSU lost to South Carolina last week, 76-70. If you want to watch a recap of that game, I did do a live after the game was over, but this game really did go down to unforced turnovers by LSU and Bree Hall stepping up when the lights were the brightest. South Carolina is still the lone undefeated team in the top 25 at 18-0 on the season and are in first place in the SEC. For LSU, they are now 18-3 on the season and are in 2nd place in the SEC. So maybe rematch when we get to SEC tournament play. We'll see. In other college news, Baylor lost to K-State 58-55. They redeemed themselves and beat Oklahoma State later in the week, 72-60. Baylor is now 16-3 on the season and are in 6th place in the Big 12. K-State is also 20-1 on the season and are in 1st place in the Big 12. Texas lost to Oklahoma 91-87. Texas is now 19-3 on the season and are in 4th place in the Big 12. Oklahoma is 13-6 and are in 2nd place in the Big 12. For Florida State, they lost to Duke pretty sizably, 88-46, and then they redeemed themselves, kind of, by beating Georgia Tech 78-67. They are now 15-7 on the season and are in 6th place in the ACC. So there is your general roundup of what happened with the top 25 teams, the top 25 teams that lost this past week. If you have any thoughts, let me know in the comments below. What was the bigger surprise for you when it came to the top 25 teams that lost? Let me know. On Sunday's game between UConn and Notre Dame, there was a reunion of sorts. UConn honored their 2003 and 2004 teams, as well as their 2013 and 2014 national championship teams. At halftime of that game, the 2013 and 2014 teams were honored and inducted into the Huskies of Honor, joining the 2003 and 2004 teams that were inducted into the Huskies of Honor in 2013. Lots of years, I'm saying. Lots of years. Now, if you don't remember, the 2014 team was probably best known as the best UConn team ever, going a whole 40-0 on the season, rolling to winning another championship title against their rivals, Notre Dame. So it seems to be fitting that they honored that team in a game against Notre Dame, and it's also even more fitting that Notre Dame beat them. We're gonna get into the rivalry of UConn and Notre Dame a little bit later. In attendance to this game was Diana Taurasi, who was a 3-time All-American and 2-time Player of the Year during her time at UConn. Carolyn Doty was there as well. She was a player that didn't have that many stats, but it was a name that you heard quite a bit if you watched UConn women's basketball back in the day. She finished her college career with 3 national championships and 3 ACL tears. Stephanie Dolson was the life of the party during her time at UConn. She was a 2-time All-American and National Defensive Player of the Year. Mariah Jefferson was there as well. She was a 4-time national champion at UConn, 2-time All-American, and 2-time Nancy Lieberman Award winner. And probably the player who I would say is probably the least remembered player for UConn, especially because of how great she was. It's surprising that she is not remembered as much. Kalina Mosqueda-Lewis was at the game, and this girl was a 3-time national champion, 2-time All-American. She is 6th on UConn's all-time scoring list with 2,178 points. This girl could shoot some threes, and she helped to bail UConn out quite a bit in the past. It's kind of amazing that, like, Kalina Mosqueda-Lewis was one of those players that, like, I just remember them saying her name over and over and over when I would watch UConn play. And, like, she's done so much for UConn, but I don't feel like she really got the true respect that she really deserved, because she really was a baller. Really was a baller. Kia Stokes was there as well. She was a 3-time champ at UConn, ACC Defensive Player of the Year, and she set the school singles game record for block shots with 10. And of course, Brianna Stewart was there, 4-time national champion, 4-time Final Four MOP, 3-time National Player of the Year. She is the 2nd person on UConn's all-time scoring list with 2,676 points, and she is 1st in UConn for blocks with 414. So lots of other players. So those players were all in attendance at this game. There were lots of other players in attendance as well. Yes, UConn did end up losing that game, but it really was cool to see UConn honor their players of the past and sort of really give them the flowers that they deserve. What do y'all think about the teams that were honored for UConn? And do you have a favorite player? Let me know in the comments below. Ole Miss needs to do a better job supporting their women's basketball team, or really women's sports in general. That was basically the message that Coach Yo had to say to the Ole Miss community.
If you've been paying attention to the landscape of women's sports, there is no doubt that women's sports is on the uptick. From viewership, from the level of talent, from the investments, from the NIL space to programs, administrations, investing. Our time is now. And no matter what the narratives people try to go out there and create, women's basketball is a legitimate entity in the sports world. One of the things that we're fighting for right now is to get units for our play. If my team had received the units our men's team would have received for the run we made last year, we would have brought in thousands of dollars. So what I'm trying to get the Oxford community to do is to catch up, because the rest of the world has caught up on the fact that women's sports is legit and it's real. And so I'm not going to allow people to make it seem like what we do doesn't matter. I'm not going to allow people to make it seem like I haven't earned everything that I've gotten. I'm not going to make it seem like our women are less than, because that is a false narrative out there. And the Oxford community needs to catch up to that. And that's the truth. We should have had Club Red up in here. It should have been packed in here. How does a team that goes to the Sweet 16 that only has 2 losses not have an average of 5,000 people in the stands? How? You know what it is? It's the lack of value, and it needs to change. And I don't care who's upset about me saying this, because I'm going to speak the truth. Women's sports is a legitimate entity. And maybe because Oxford right now doesn't think so, the rest of the world has caught on. So the Oxford community needs to catch on. The Ole Miss campus community needs to catch on. There are games that are sold out. The ticket for the LSU South Carolina game was $3,000. There was a volleyball, sports, pro sports sold out. There have been 14, 16, 11, 10,000 people that have been at women's sports games in college. We need to catch up. And it's disappointing. It's disappointing when my team runs out here and have won a whole lot, and we don't get the crowd support we deserve. And some people will say, oh, she's just complaining, she needs to shut up. Well, I'm not shutting up. I'm not shutting up. You know why? Because when I turn on the TV, when I look around, when we go to other places, women's sports is a real thing. And so I'm going to be the voice for that here, because our community needs to be better, man. And it's disappointing. And so I needed to say that, because I'm going to be the truth teller around here. Now, for our faithful fans, they may be few, but they faithful, and I love them to death. I asked one guy to go ahead and do the whole, it's a football player who took his shirt off, and he came out and did that for me. So the love is there. I'm not crying for love. We get the love. We know what the love feels like. We just need to catch up. You know, we don't have to be a football school, a men's basketball school, a baseball school. We're a women's golf school. We're a women's track and field school. We're a women's basketball school. Catch up, Oxford. Catch up, Ole Miss community.
In yesterday's game between Ole Miss and Tennessee, about 3,863 fans came out to support the team, which is significantly more than the 2,450 fans who attended Ole Miss's previous game against Florida.
This one will be much lighter than the last one. Just really grateful for everybody that showed up. When I spoke about our community, I meant our community, because I'm a part of it. Every single day I'm at soccer practice, I'm in the mix. And people in the community can tell you that. They know me, and they see me. And so it was a call to action because I know how special this place is. But I'm also the one that promotes this university as well. And I can't promote it without the help of everybody. And so when everyone's like, oh, win a national championship, well, help me help you. All right? Crowds like this on a consistent basis will continue to win just like that. And so this victory means a lot to us. I was grateful for everybody that came out and supported.
And I think a lot of times we as fans sort of focus on the bigger name schools that get 10,000 plus at their games. Yesterday, while Ole Miss got 3,863 fans, Colonial Life Arena in South Carolina was sold out at 18,000 fans. So a lot of times we focus on some of the bigger schools that get 10,000 plus at their games, but we kind of forget that most women's basketball programs around the country will never see a sellout. Many of those schools will struggle to even get 3,000 fans in the stands. Some even struggle to even get 500 people to purchase a ticket. It is super important for coaches like Coach Yo to speak out about the lack of support that their programs get from the larger community, especially when the larger community is supporting other sports programs for the school. For example, football, men's basketball, that type of stuff. So with that in mind, here is my request for everybody who is watching this video. If you can, please consider attending at least one game during the remainder of the season. One women's basketball college game. If you live near a school, which for the most part, I think most people in the U.S. Live relatively close to a college of some sort, whether that's D1, D2, D3. My request is for you to go to a game and let people know about it. Let people know that you're going. Invite other people to join you, because likely the team that's closest to your house probably isn't getting much support. And having an additional 1 to 2 to 5 people in the crowd, it does a lot. It really does do a lot to show the administration the support that the school, that the women's basketball team has. So I would highly encourage you to go to a game, or go to multiple games if you can. Not for the bigger name, not for like the big name programs. Yeah, sure, support them as well, but the smaller programs, and not even smaller, like Ole Miss is not even a smaller program, but in the reality of things, they don't really get, they kind of are, because they're not getting the numbers in attendance, but there's programs that don't even get 200 people to attend. And they're playing hard. They're trying their best, and they don't even get 200 people to show up to watch them play. So highly encourage you, if you're watching this, please consider going to a women's college basketball game. There's not that much time left before the season is over. So in the next month or so, if you could, that would be awesome. And let me know what game you go to watch, and let me know how that turns out. We all know that the Pac-12 is in their last season, and next year the programs that were in the Pac-12 are going to be joining other conferences. One of those conferences being the Big Ten. Next year, Oregon, Washington, USC, and UCLA will join the Big Ten. And with that influx of programs, it would put the number of Big Ten teams to 18. Now, according to The Athletic, the Big Ten plans on keeping their 20-game conference schedule, which is great. But one big change that seems to be likely going to happen is that we will not see all of the programs make it to the conference tournament for women's basketball. Starting next year, only 15 of the 18 programs in the Big Ten will actually make it to the tournament. Now, this is a pretty rare occurrence because conferences usually always allow all of their member programs to make the conference tournament. The Big East, they decided for a hot second to not allow all of their teams to make it to the tournament. This was in the 2000s, but that didn't end well because coaches complained because they said like it hurt their job security, and also they said it took away from the essence of college basketball. So my assumption is that this 15-team tournament is not going to last that long because, one, coaches for sure will make some noise about it because conference play is a huge deal for the programs that are sort of at the bottom of the conference. Yeah, sure, they'll lose in the first round, but at least they have an opportunity to shine on a bigger stage. Not being able to go to conference play or tournament play for the conference at all is going to be a huge deal for the bottom programs of the Big Ten. So I think maybe this is a thing for a couple of years, and then eventually they're going to put enough stink around it that the Big Ten will be forced to allow all teams to make the conference tournament, and then just have like a series of buys for the top teams. So it's not an addition of games or anything like that, or in terms of like the best teams. It's not an addition of their games. So just give them a bye, let everybody make it. The bottom schools will probably lose anyway. But who knows? Maybe they'll surprise everybody. So yeah, that is the news in terms of that. Let me know what you all think about the Big Ten and them having 18 teams next season. Any surprises you think we'll see? We'll probably see a lot. But anyway, let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Also, as we round out our college conversation, I do want to give a huge shout out to Western Illinois' coach, J.D. Gravina, who became the winningest coach in school history with 193 wins. Now, a big shout out to TCU, who has dealt with a whole bunch of injuries, which led them to have open tryouts for their program. They were able to get 4 former high school players to join their team that were actually pretty good in high school. There's Piper Davis, who is a freshman at TCU. She is a guard who led her school in Idaho to a state championship in 2022. She also was in the state's All-Star game in 2023. We have Ella Hamlin, who is a freshman as well. She scored 1,500 points in high school. She went to high school in Texas. She was also named the district's Offensive Player of the Year in 2022 and 2023. We have Makaya Moore, who is a sophomore at TCU. She went to school in Texas and helped her school to a state championship in 2022 and was named the MVP of that state championship as well. And then we finish off with TCU volleyball star Sarah Sylvester, who has joined the team. She has been on the Horned Frogs team, helping them to get to the NCAA tournament for the last 2 years. Also, she played basketball when she was in high school, and she is the tallest of the new recruits. She is 6'3". TCU went 1 of 1 during their last week. And while, you shouldn't get any wild ideas about any of these new players actually getting a bunch of minutes, it's kind of cool that they sort of put out the alarm like, hey, we need more players. And there was just some former state champions just walking around their campus. That's kind of cool. Yes, they're not gonna really play at all. I think Sarah Sylvester is the only one that's played so far in an actual game, and I think she's only played like 2 minutes. So these players are not likely gonna play unless there's more injuries or unless a player gets in severe foul trouble. But it's just kind of cool, and it's like, it's probably very unexpected for these players to just be walking around campus and doing their thing, and all of a sudden they have an opportunity to play on their college basketball team. Like that's kind of cool in the Big 12 of all places. Like that's kind of cool. But anyway, shout out to the ladies of TCU. Let's get ready to shoot some 3-putters. A little bit awkward, but anyway. Now imagine this: Steph Curry versus Sabrina Ionescu. two of the NBA and WNBA's best three-point shooters going head-to-head in a contest to see who truly is the best. Now, this concept is actually going to happen during All-Star Weekend this year, which takes place on from February the 16th through the 18th in Indianapolis, Indiana. Now, the idea was sort of awkwardly mentioned by Steph in a recent game. And when I say awkwardly, I mean very, very awkwardly.
Yo, do you know who holds the record for the most points in a three-point competition? I think I gotta bring her out and be like, we gotta settle this once and for all.
After that comment made the rounds on January the 2nd, The Athletic later confirmed that the idea was truly happening. No idea yet on what the rules exactly will be, but this for sure will be interesting. Last year, the WNBA three-point contest, Sabrina Ionescu set a contest record with 37 points. She passed Steph Curry, who is also one of the highest single NBA three-point contest record holders, and he had 31. Now, my question to you guys is, what do you think about the news that Sabrina is going to be playing against Steph for the three-point contest? Who do you think is going to win? And do you think that this will help to grow the women's game? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. So for this week's edition of In the History Books, we're going to talk about the rivalry between UConn and Notre Dame. Now, this is a rivalry that is so long and so storied that they even have their own Wikipedia page. Like, that's kind of crazy. The info is largely accurate, but don't worry, none of the information that I will tell you came directly from Wikipedia, though some of it probably is on Wikipedia. So why the rivalry between Notre Dame and UConn? Well, the rivalry could seem a little bit odd because these are two schools that are nowhere near each other. You know, you got one in the Midwest, you got the other one on the East Coast. And so you're probably like, why did this even become a rivalry? Well, this actually started off as a rivalry because UConn and Notre Dame were actually in the same conference for a bit. In 1996, Notre Dame joined the Big East Conference, and on January the 18th, 1996, UConn and Notre Dame matched up for the first time. And they actually played in South Bend, Indiana, at Notre Dame's home, and it was on from there. UConn actually did win that first game, by the way, if you're curious. It would take several more games between the two and 5 years for Notre Dame to eventually beat UConn. This happened on January the 15th, 2001. In that same year, both teams played each other two more times, with the Huskies beating the Irish in the Big East tournament. And then they played each other again in the Final Four on March the 30th, 2001. And as we all know, Notre Dame beat UConn to go on to win their first championship. And on that Irish team was then senior point guard Niele Ivey. Now, other big games from this rivalry include some huge Final Four games, like the one in 2011 when the Irish spoiled Maya Mora's final UConn game, beating the Huskies 72-63 to advance to the championship game. Fast forward another year in Denver, and the same thing happened again. In 2012, a then Skylar Diggins-Smith and Notre Dame beat UConn in the Final Four. And in 2013, UConn got their revenge by beating Notre Dame in the Final Four and eventually going on to win another NCAA title. The following year, in 2014, both teams were undefeated and met in the NCAA championship game in Nashville, where UConn would go on to hoist the trophy for the second time in a row. The following year, both teams met again in the championship game, and once again, UConn came out on top. Now, yeah, that is a pretty big stretch of women's basketball where it really was UConn versus Notre Dame, Gino versus Muffet McGraw, competing to see who would sit on top of women's college basketball. And the rivalry would continue in 2018 when they went to the Final Four again, and Arike Ogunbowale hit that iconic buzzer beater shot to send Notre Dame past UConn 91-86 or 89. And in that year, the Fighting Irish would go on to win another title game. Now we would see a rematch of that same game in the Final Four in 2019, and Notre Dame would go on to win again. Now, after 2019, the rivalry, in my mind, kind of slowed down. Sure, both teams still played each other, but it wasn't necessarily big games at all. Muffet McGraw ended up retiring in 2020 after 33 years at Notre Dame. And Notre Dame is building to return back to the greatness of old with Neil Ivey at the helm. While UConn and Gino are still sort of trying to figure out how to return back to their former glory. But during that 20-year stretch between 2000 and the 2001 season to the 2019-2020 season, Notre Dame versus UConn was a sight to behold. And a fun fact, during that stretch, the Irish was responsible for 28% of UConn's losses, which is super, super wild to actually think about. 28% of your losses came to one team. Now, my question to you all is, do you remember this rivalry? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. All right, folks, that is this week's episode of Women's Basketball Weekly. I do want to say thank you for watching. And if you can, hit that like button if you did indeed like the video. If you have any comments about anything I talked about, let me know what you think about it in the comments below. Also, I know I did not talk that much about the WNBA, specifically free agency. That is because I will have a special WNBA conversation. It'll be a live talking about free agency. So be on the lookout for that later this week. We will go all the way talking about everything that's happening in the world of free agency, what we do know, what we don't know, speculate on some stuff. And just know that on February the 1st, teams will start to be able to sign players. So we'll know a lot more then. Until next time, guys, I thank you again. And until next time, guys, bye.